Good morning, listeners, friends, colleagues. Here we are again, another Saturday, and my goodness me, they're really flying through. We're almost at the last of the year. So next Saturday's show will be the last one for 2020. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who will be rubbing my hands to get rid of this damn year. What an absolute terrible, terrible experience of a year. But on the other hand, it's gone quite quickly. Steve, welcome again, my friend. Lovely to see you.
Thanks a lot, Chris. I wish your shirt was a little bit more colourful, then I could see you slightly more clearly than I can. But I'm sure for those of our avid followers, no doubt they're watching on YouTube and they're seeing this this very multicultural, multinational shirt. Can I ask if there's any reason?
No, just I feel I'm a global man, Steve, a man of the world. You know what I'm saying? I'm interested.
I thought you might have been tidying out those boxes from the 70s in the bottom of your wardrobe.
Oh, very good, very good. Remember the old saying, though, my friend. Revenge is a dessert best served cold. Last show of the week.
See.
Last show of the year. Anyhow, I can see.
Anyway, it's great to see. This is maybe the UK Prime Minister should have taken a similar garment to his dinner last night with Ursula von der Leyen with all the 27 flags of the European Union. Might have helped him out.
Yeah, he might have got a little bit of support from a few of them. My goodness me.
Anyway, good to see you, Chris.
Likewise. But what a time for all this now. Brexit on top of COVID. It's ridiculous, isn't it? Anyhow.
Well, we knew Brexit was always going to happen. In fact, Brexit happened, I think, on the 31st of January. People sort of forget that. We did leave the European Union. The UK left on the 31st of January. It's just that the transition arrangements remained in place until the 31st of December. But unfortunately, COVID sort of jumped over the top of that. I guess the government, both in the UK and in the other 27 nations, were slightly distracted. Their focus wasn't getting a Brexit or a trade deal with the UK. Their focus was, rightly so, on trying to mitigate the effects of this damn bloody pesky virus.
It's incredible, though, Stephen. And just by saying that now, you just triggered something. Isn't it a shame that people were not prepared for so many things, this year included? You know what I'm saying? I mean, obviously you couldn't foresee such a thing happening, but to have some mitigation or risk, you know, and equally with the Brexit issue, there wasn't enough information for people to make I think for them to make a real educated decision on what they wanted to do, you know, and now all the information comes out at the end.
Or maybe they shouldn't have been given the decision at all, Chris. Maybe that was the biggest lesson learned is too much democracy is not always a good thing.
100%, exactly. That's why people are chosen.
That's why we pay politicians to represent us.
Yeah.
However,
my
friend, podcast in itself.
Exactly. And now that I've got your juices running, okay, let's get on to some good and positive things. So firstly, quite a bit of people movement. And I know the movement from Easyjet to Wizz Air, Vueling to Wizz Air. I'm sure you're going to mention a few names there that you know quite well.
Well, I mean, we've seen a bit of movement this week. I think Robert Kerry, who was formerly the chief commercial officer at Easyjet, has moved across to Wizz Air to take on a new role that Joseph has created, which is the president of Wizz Air. So, you know, I guess putting some more kind of structure and sort of organisation in place there. That's left obviously a vacancy in Easyjet. An old colleague of mine with whom I worked with many years ago. I think Sophie just joined when I was leaving Easyjet back in 2006. Sophie Deckers, who at the time I think was the UK sales manager or something along those lines. She's just been promoted into the battleground as the chief commercial officer at Easyjet. So many congratulations to both Robert and to Sophie in their moves, and Michael Delahunt, who was I think he was the head of strategy or chief strategy officer at Vueling, moves into a similar role in Wizz, looking after the operations portfolio. I think that Deirdre Penn, who'd been there for the last few years, had held. So a few changes there. Interestingly, both into Wizz Air, which is an airline that very rarely gets a mention on this Sure, Chris.
Yep. Yep.
But look, there's movement, and look, I guess more so than just the relative congratulations to Sophie, Robert, and Michael on their respective moves. I think what it says to me, Chris, is whilst these moves are at sort of in the C-level roles at the top of these businesses, and respectively EasyJet and Wizz Air. It does tell me that there is still some movement through the system. And the way I've always sort of thought about it is, there will always be good roles, great roles for great people. And our industry needs great people. No more so at a time, I think, like this, Chris. So what that's done is, Sophie is somebody from EasyJet that came through the ranks and finds herself, now as the chief commercial officer, and great work and fair play to Sophie. But that, of course, creates other opportunities through the system, and through the organisation. And I think that's the really positive thing, is that in spite of the challenges that both EasyJet and Wizz and their peer airlines are facing, they're investing in people. They're investing in people in the right roles to help, drive this recovery. And I think so. As I said, whilst great to see these three individuals moving into these roles themselves. I think actually it gives us broader hope for for many more than just the three I've mentioned today.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think the time for change is a little bit like football management. You know what I'm saying? You see managers moving and they do things differently. They get a little bit of revival. It doesn't necessarily mean that people who are going one way or the other way there was anything wrong. It's just a combination of all elements. But that change is normally refreshing, and it just gives that extra impetus. So
that's right. Yeah.
So many a jockey has won on a replacement horse. So it doesn't always mean that the favourites are the only ones who win. So I think you're right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Huge amount of opportunity out there, and it's nice to see that things are changing. It's also good to see that companies are announcing already that they're bringing staff back. Most of the dates seem to be around March of next year, but that's good that they're already saying we're bringing them back, and we're bringing them back on full salary. So that's good. Even like Dublin Airport Authority.
I saw that with DA. Yeah, I was going to call them Arianta, but that would be a few years ago.
Yes.
I can't remember how long it's been called DA for such a long time, but I don't know where that I plucked that out from a few years back. But no, I did see that. Other Irish news this week also, of course, was I saw two other bits of Irish news that are relevant, Chris. And I know you're a good Irishman yourself. Although do I see the Irish flag on that shirt, Chris?
No, you don't. You don't.
Oh,
that's that's in the heart, my friend.
It's in the heart.
It's in the heart.
I see. That's a great recovery.
In the heart and tattooed. Yeah.
Great recovery. In more serious note, 2 points of news from Ireland this week that was really quite interesting. And as you know, Michael O'Leary has been pretty quick to condemn the Irish government and their response to COVID and their ongoing restrictions and their fortress island being protected from every bit of the outside world that they possibly can. Of course, at the same time, scuppering his business and Irish tourism at the same extent, and Irish commerce. So it was really good to see two things happen. One was my old boss, Conor McCarthy, who's many will know as the co-founder of AirAsia and Jetstar and Viva Aerobus, amongst others. But also, and I think 12, 13 years ago, Conor founded Dublin Aerospace, and he's being interviewed by Enterprise Ireland this week, Enterprise Ireland UK, based on his acquisition of what was formerly the Flybe MRO in Exeter. And that was really good to see Conor talking about and listening to Conor speaking about the opportunities that creates, as well as the roles that creates. Many of those guys, Chris, at the very beginning of this crisis, if you remember back in March, Flybe was one of the first to kind of fall by the wayside. Yeah. I think had structural and material issues before COVID came along, but just on the cusp, COVID was the kind of nail in the coffin. But great to see some people moving back into the business that Conor's now acquired called Exeter Aerospace, and he's employing people back in those roles that the ones were capable, competent people, licensed engineers, aircraft mechanics and so on. So that was really, really good to see that.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's an Irish investment. And also, I have to say, just touching on Brexit, confidence from an Irish business in the UK market, and that's really important, I think, from an optics perspective. The second other bit of news I saw only just yesterday, I think, or the day before, was Aer Lingus has filed an application or has already established Aer Lingus UK,
yes,
and
yes,
two
yes.
of their A330s will be moving onto the UK register, onto the G register, and
Yeah,
Aer Lingus UK expects to start flying, I think, or have an AOC issued in February next year, which is fabulous news.
yeah,
And I suspect that Aer Lingus has a pretty strong cost advantage, over the likes of British Airways. However, IAG are continuing that strategy, saying, look, I think what we would rather do is, if we are going to, somebody's going to cannibalize, or there's risk of cannibalization of our customers post-COVID, we would rather it's the group ourselves within IAG that are cannibalizing. So I expect there to be a little bit of resetting of capacity between certainly British Airways, Aer Lingus, but also I do think this may well be the final nail in the coffin for Norwegian at Gatwick. If Aer Lingus is to get any scale or any legs, on these transatlantic operations, as we well know, that's where Norwegian long haul really suffered, really couldn't get the
yeah.
couldn't get this sort of scale relevance, and therefore. But I do wish, I don't wish any harm to Norwegian, but they've been in hibernation for a long time now. I don't know if we'll ever see them come back in a long haul way or not. But certainly, I do wish Aer Lingus the best of luck. I think it's great to see that commitment and confidence in the UK market. And again, the broader impacts of that, Chris, should be felt by supply chain and those in the industry more broadly as well.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's positive news, and like you said there, it's not good to see anybody going out of business or any part of business. But I think what it needs now is for people to focus and concentrate on what they do well, and not just trying to be all things to everybody. So I think that's something that people will focus on now. Now, with that focus, we're also looking at airports. Now, airports are looking to optimize operations, increase efficiency, and reduce costs for all of their ecosystem. So I think one thing that has been positive and needs to be positive moving forward is the collaboration now, and also the role that the airports take. So we're, from promoting telematics, digitization, anything that they can do now to improve the sanitization concerns, and also even touchless processing, everything now must embrace technology moving forward. And there's some incredible young companies and young entrepreneurs and creators out there. And I think there's going to be an album or a showcase of off-the-shelf products and capability that people should start to look at now, and not be trying to do things themselves all the time.
Yeah, look, I mean, we've spoken about this previously. I think airports were always sort of in a difficult position, or not a difficult position. It was the assumed position or the adopted position, which was, airlines had a bit of sparring with the airport, and airports had a bit of sparring with the airlines. And the ones that suffered most were the ground handlers.
Yeah.
These shopping centres that have sort of been expanded over the years have started to find that all of the focus on retail and all the focus on travel retail and shopping and making the experience as wonderful as it could possibly be for the shoppers through said shopping centres. I call shopping centres, but they are really airports. It's nice to see. Or it's not nice to see. It's bloody very awkward and uncomfortable to see that these shopping centres were only ever predicated by people that fly. Unless it's Singapore Changi Airport, nobody goes to the airport at the weekends to spend their time or their money on retail. So I do think, Chris, that this, and look, that's helped the airline community as well. I have to say, I'm not. This is not me just bashing at the airport. This, non-aeronautical revenue, particularly in single-till regulatory environments, has helped airlines immensely because of the ability that airports have to use that revenue to offset some of their costs on the regulated asset base, and that's been really, really kind of really helpful. What has become very stark, therefore, is that the airports have to refocus, and to use a word that I cannot stand, but I've heard it used many a time, pivot. Pivot to actually doing what they should have been doing in the first place,
Yeah.
which is establishing good, solid relationships with their customer. The customer, by the way, is not the passenger. The customer is the airline. Customers don't transact with the airport. Passengers don't transact with the airport. They transact with the airline and use that facility. So the airports need to re-engage with the airlines proactively and really well. We've seen some of that already. We've seen some great external press. I'm sure you and I have had some private conversations with airports and airlines recently that tells us there are some really good success stories out there.
Yep.
There are also still some airports that are acting in unfavourable or I just think really short-sighted ways. Trying to offer discounts and pricing benefits up front, but clawing it back at the end of a quinquennial review or the end of a regulated asset-based pricing term. I mean, I just think that is nonsensical, because all of the capital that they've invested, they've been able to largely avoid, and it's been aborted. So I do think resetting that relationship is important. The one that I would say that we always talk about, Chris, is this ground handler relationship. The ground handlers are going to come under a huge amount of pressure. They were under immense stress already as low margin contributors within our ecosystem or within our industry. And so I do think that that they have to find their place. I'm not sure that we could speak about this once a month, as we do once every 3 or 4 episodes, and we chat about it. But I'm yet to see a kind of a best in class example where we have seen airports proactively leading, supporting some local suppliers, local innovators, as you say, young, smart people that can add to the kind of the digital capability, the innovation capability. Actually, trying to get work in the airport has been really difficult. So I tried and failed to catch a sandfly there, but
I thought you were applauding your own comments, so I thought that's very good.
I was not. One thing I would say is the airports like Stansted, an airport that I worked at for many years, because they've always sort of engaged with the local community and had this sort of this community embracing, and they have these annual or biannual community procurement days where local suppliers can come from the beautiful parts of the rolling fields of the green North Essex and the Hertfordshire countryside, a part that I'm so very fond because I lived there for many a year. And sell their wares through an easy way of collaborating with them. That would be a really good way to. I mean, it's sort of like a market, what's it called? A market stall or something. Let's show me your wares and so we go.
Yeah.
So I think there's much more to do there. I do think that that the commercial pressures between ground handler and airline are starting to be addressed. I mean, I did see some of the GHI conversations last week. Some discussion about that. Our old mate Peter Hewitt was there, and he was speaking well. I hope Peter listens to this bloody podcast. I watched you last week, Peter, so I do hope that you're watching Chris and I on this week's show. But Peter and his colleagues were talking about the need to reset this kind of relationship around service outcomes, SLA outcomes, KPIs, measures, and really have kind of much more of a collaborative hand-in-glove approach that I'm glad has been talking about at GHI, because that gets some traction, it gets people to listen.
And because of the fact that at least now there's an awareness of sustainability and resilience, and people have got to take a collective responsibility for that. And that race to the bottom, and everybody saying yes, and because of fear and losing, it's so wrong. Short term, it's not gonna do anybody any good. But there needs to be a reality there. So I totally agree. And data sharing now needs to be more open. But it can't continue the way it was, Stephen. 100%. 100%. Now, something I'd like to ask you about now. This balance between privacy protection and having data and biometric capability. There's so much that can be done with AI and biometrics, and it's just now this resistance to it. But I think now, touchless processing, if you look at the entire process now, on the passenger side, more so, you could actually get away with not touching anything until you grab your seatbelt.
Yeah. Look, I think there's an awful lot of opportunity here, Chris. I think the market has actually been quite progressive. I think people have responded quite quickly. Great to see some of the even the big suppliers, the big names, which I won't name because that would be rather unfair. They have been surprisingly progressive when it comes to airport technology. normally they're kind of they're slow laggards at kind of pushing change and innovation. Some of the smaller guys have been really good as well. I mean, there's a lot of suppliers out there, that have been really sort of working really hard, either supported and sponsored through these type of sort of incubator, labs or incubator opportunities that the guys at in IAG at Hangar 51 or Shashank Nigam and his team at Simply Flying have started to help sort of spur some of these smaller suppliers into opportunities in the marketplace. I think that's been really well received. I think that will continue, Chris. I think the need, what if this as sad as it is, this virus obviously has resulted in many more excess deaths than would have ordinarily potentially been the case. Some directly linked to COVID and many not directly linked to COVID, but nonetheless recorded as COVID affected. I think I would say the whole thing about hygiene and practicing good hygiene, being a good seat neighbour on an aircraft, or being a good person, or just being a bit more mindful about it. If this virus has done nothing else, well, it's done an awful lot, but if it did nothing else other than encourage people to wash their hands, be a little bit smarter, be a little bit more thoughtful, when it comes to hygiene, and whether that's in the home or it's with your children or it's with it's restaurants or food outlets, then I think that's a good thing. So I do think there may well be a lasting place for some of this contactless, touchless technology and supporting these contactless journeys, etc. That people may crave for the future. I mean, I was surprised to hear last week, even after the vaccine. I don't know who these people were that they're interviewing or surveying, but 40% of the British people surveyed in this thing would continue to wear a face mask after a vaccine. Frankly, I found that astonishing because actually, everybody I've spoken to, once they've had the vaccine, I mean, I don't think anybody thinks it's a silver bullet, but certainly they would not be expecting to wear a mask in 12 months' time. However, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know. Maybe people will walk around with masks.
I've been talking to people now. One of the things that you mentioned there about going back to good old values, when your grandmother or your parents would always say, wash your hands before you eat a meal, wash your hands when you've been to the toilet, wash your hands when you've done this. And that sort of died out. And then gradually people didn't care about what they did sitting next to each other, whether it's on a bus or a train or, but I think now people are starting to care more. And some of the people I've been talking to.
Some of the places that we've been together.
I was going to say, yeah. Well, I would definitely wear a mask. I'd wear a mask on a mask. But the point I'm getting at is a lot of people are, Steve. They're saying that irrespective of COVID now in the future, they're talking about just basic colds and flus and bugs and whatever, that they would still continue to wear a mask where it was in a very high condensed, a populous surrounding. So I think it's
one of the things
an awful lot.
One of the things that we said very early weeks of this was I was listening to an interview with John Holland Kay, the CEO of Heathrow Airport.
Yep.
And this was when flying was still kind of, people still flew. This must have been around April, before it all sort of came crashing down around. And he said there was a Chinese group checking in Terminal 2, and they were all of these passengers were wearing face masks. Not because any of them had COVID, but because they felt that it was the right thing to do, that if they were asymptomatic and did have something, that they didn't want to spread it to John and his colleagues. So John and his colleagues were looking at these guys going, why are you fellas all wearing masks?
Yes.
And so of course, now the tables have turned. We know exactly why they're wearing masks. Masks are not there to protect you or prevent you from getting something.
It's masks about
to stop. Exactly. And so I've lived in Japan. I've lived in Singapore. I live in Malaysia. Masks here are a very regular, common, everyday occurrence. You see people wearing masks because they've got a little bit of the cold. They still want to go to the office, and so they wear a mask.
Yep.
Rather than go into the office, not wear a mask, sneeze over everything with your dirty hands, and instead you contaminate the entire office, which is what the Brits and the Westerners generally have done for many years.
But I think a proportion will change, Stephen, and it will remain, and it'll do more good than harm. So I think anybody who wants to do it, and I think it's going to remain a little bit of a fashion item. So I think people will carry on doing it. But
you get your Tottenham Hotspur mask, Chris. I'll send it on to you.
No, I don't need that one. I don't need. If you can get a Brentford one, Get me a Brentford one. I'll be happy to wear that. That'd go just nice with my rugby shirt now.
It would. It would.
Yeah. But listen, another good thing is the fact that there's been some joint guidelines now issued by EASA and ECDC with regards to passengers not being treated as high risk. So all the things that again we've been talking about, and especially yourself, it's one of the safest places. So why was it almost that you were penalised by being a passenger when you're in one of the most safest environments of them all, which is the aircraft? So with the touch point issue now and touchless processing and all those other positive elements, it's nice to see that is at last being recognised, and there's some good news and good feelings. And as soon as this vaccine starts to take a little bit of a hit, which realistically, I think everybody, especially here in the UK, there's going to be there's already a spike, but there's going to be more spikes in January. So, it's not until March, April time that I think things are going to start to take off. But when they do, I think it's going to be rapid, very, very rapid. So people need to be prepared. Now, that brings me to something else, Steve, collaboration and consolidation. So we're also talking again about some points that the chief, Mr. Al-Bakr, said about, the challenges ahead and what needs to be done, etc., and that there'll be more consolidation. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think Mr. Al-Bakr must have been a regular listener to our podcast, Chris, because I think we had been speaking about this for quite some time, and you asked me specifically last week or the week before, it may have been, I can't recollect now, but my 3 predictions, and one of them was around, and this is not, I don't think it's a scientific prediction. I don't think there's any more intellect. Well, there can't be any more intellect because I don't have much intellect, so there can't be much more of that used. But I think just based on seeing how things are playing out and how geography is kind of playing a part in this, and looking at kind of balance sheets and looking at the sort of precarious, those that were hanging on by a thread before, unviable airlines potentially, or unviable service providers. As sad as it is for the people that work there, there is a likely demise. Now that demise will either be, they disappear into the abyss, or let's hope that somebody, there's a lot of debt restructuring going on right now. There's a lot of debt being bought up. There's a lot of refinancing opportunities that banks will make a lot of money from, and investment banks are heavily involved in. It may well be that the merger and acquisition space becomes actually really quite active and more active than we've seen in recent years. So this is what Mr. Al-Bakr was speaking to. And I think certainly here where I'm sitting in Asia, I think there's a fair bit to go on here. I think there's a lot. We've seen a lasting effect in Asia for some of the reasons that you mentioned, Chris, around about some of that sensitivity about flying. As you know, and as our listeners and followers will have seen, I've been in different locations almost each week for probably the last 4, 5, 6 months. Since after I escaped from London in June, but I have been moving around. I have not felt any more at risk than I would do in a restaurant or a bar or walking in Oxford Street or walking down Jalan Bukit Bintang here in Kuala Lumpur. However, the perception in Asia is have you just arrived, or you've flown in from some. They sort of look at you like you've got 3 heads. Now, maybe people just look at me a bit weirdly anyway, because I'm as you know, I'm a bit of an introvert, I'm very quiet. I would never say boo to a goose. You never find me sort of sidling up to you in a bar and starting a conversation. That would not be how I would operate. For all those that know me, they might be going,
there might be a few out there.
That's right, yeah. But look, the reality is, Chris, that some of this is about perception. Perception, unfortunately, breeds behavioural change. Behavioural change actually, therefore, sort of continues to fuel the fire that may be unnecessary until we get vaccine. Different confidence boosters work for different regions, different markets. You've got to work out in your family or in your employer, or within your employer or within your community, what the right lever is for you. For some, it'll be a vaccine. Yeah, I'm good to go. I'm all good. Might want to wait until it drops down a little bit more before I start traveling around. Let's wait until everybody else moves. So horses for courses, as they say.
Yep, 100%. But definitely, I agree with you, Steve. The M&A and consolidation. I think there's going to be a lot of people making a lot of money next year.
Yes. Let's not dwell on that, Chris, because some of it may well be some of it is opportunistic. Some of it is actual capital raising that the airlines and businesses have had to do to maintain steady flow. But some of it, I guess, one could sort of say, well, actually, who are the fellas making the money out of this? Well, maybe it's the financial institutions, and maybe it's the pharmaceutical companies. Oh, lo and behold, heaven forbid.
Yeah, no, fair enough. But it's good. Another good bit of news, just while we're talking there about Doha. Hamad International got their 5-star CV19 airport safety rating, and which is
whatever that means.
Yes, exactly. But nonetheless,
whatever that means, it seems that everybody can write up an accreditation these days and present it as a certificate.
Exactly. Yes, but nonetheless, people that are doing the right things for the right reasons, then fair play to them. But another good thing that's happening there is I don't know if you've seen it, the Easyjet, the Hope Initiative, the Hope Consortium.
I didn't, no.
Okay, I think that's really positive. That shows how one particular set of parties can collaborate and come together in support of creating something. So, they're trying to get the vaccine logistics hub there in Abu Dhabi. And it was really, really positively presented. It was good. So that was nice to see. So that's a little shout out. And also Martin Drew there is back with cargo. So I know Martin will make a big impact. Tremendous young man. Right now, Stephen, moving forward, what do you reckon as far as like a year end? And we've only got the best part of 2.5, 3 weeks. What do you think are going to be the highlights for year end?
Oh, Chris. I'll give you my predictions for next year. So
yeah, that's just for you to think about for next week, Steve.
Well, highlights for year end probably will result. I mean, look, I think everybody's Christmas plans probably has changed for those that celebrate Christmas. For those that don't celebrate Christmas, I think Christmas is still a time that people of multiple faiths still get together as families and friends and celebrate sort of seasonal opportunity or seasonal goodwill. I think people will be just bloody glad, Chris, to get to the end of this damned year, and say that they survived. And I hope that those that have lost loved ones can seek some kind of solace or hope that the advent of vaccines, will help stem this for those. But it doesn't take away from their sad losses, of course. Nor does the advent of a vaccine create a silver bullet for businesses that have been so imperiled by this crisis and all those families that have lost jobs as a result. So I will take some time to think that through for next week. But I'm going to create this teacher says London Calling. I'm going to have one next to it that says I made it.
Yes. Through the year.
Oh, I just put myself on mute as I got excited there. I got to the end of 2020. I think that'll be a good thing. Maybe I should mute myself. Maybe that's what you're all wanting and hoping.
No, not at all. But listen, if you're looking to get yourself a nice little Christmas present, okay, see this here, yeah. Okay, this
50 years on the leading edge of the airline industry. A book called Turbulence.
A book called Turbulence, yeah.
Must be written by an American because the Americans are the only ones that put their middle initial on their names.
Yeah. But he's an American Irishman. His name's David Van Miller, and he's based in Malahide in Dublin at the moment. A really, really lovely man. And we're going to start doing a feature on the book with him. Some of the experiences he's had and the stories. If anybody was thinking of coming into aviation after reading this, they definitely want to come in. And I think with the opportunities that are ahead now, it's a great industry to come into. So the more people and the more skills and the more innovation and creativity that we can get back in now, the better. And especially all the people that have been displaced. I think that's one huge wish list for the new year, is that they get the chance to come back into their industry quicker than they ever thought possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, lovely boy. Another week has gone. I'll let you go.
One more to go.
Yeah,
one more to go. I'm looking forward to the big year-end bash. I'm not sure that what Parveen has got in way of a budget, but if you want to send a bottle of Hock or Blue Nun over to Bangsar in Kuala Lumpur, I will happily partake in a festive drink with you next week, Chris.
Hey, Blue Nun, that goes back, hey. What a specialist, eh? Blue Nun. Oh,
Well, Blue Nun, if you want, I'm sure James Wyatt will be able to pop down to his local supermarket
yeah,
and pick one up.
awesome.
So I will be drinking that vicariously. A Black Tower, God, that was god awful stuff.
Zinfandel. Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. Have a great weekend.
You too, lovely boy. Take care of yourself.
See you. Cheerio.
All the best. Thanks.